So in just under a month, The Witcher Season 4 comes out. So we're going to look back at the previous and the fact that the first series actually sucked, even though it was pretty well received at the time.
I was going to do when you said Witcher Season 4 comes out, I was going to go, yay.
Well, Season 1 was generally pretty well received. People were just mad about a few things, like the pacing and the multiple timelines. But Witcher is your new obsession.
I've read the 2 short stories, I've read the first 3 books of the 5-book saga, and now I'm on book 4, The Tower of the Swallow. The way we're going to try and approach this is the show as its own entity. Like, what is the show doing and what do we think the show's goals are? So with Season 1, I would imagine the goal was to get people interested and invested in this world and characters. And I'd say by the end of it, you've got people who are happy that Henry Cavill gets to look cool and handsome while swinging a sword.
Everyone was excited for Season 2 because they felt like now it could start.
This was a post-terrible Game of Thrones finale. All the streamers had done their fantasy arms races. Amazon got Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time, which...
This was touted as Netflix's Game of Thrones. They were going to do 7 seasons. They're just going to hit 5.
Yeah, they've planned it all, don't worry. I remember Lauren, the showrunner, said, I have rough plans for it all. And to be fair, they are simpler books than Game of Thrones. They are finished. And if you want, the author is only a phone call away. It's definitely strange watching it. Do you feel a bit like the story began at the end of episode 8?
This is kind of like a prequel season.
You're like, oh, here it is. Great. It's began.
I didn't mind watching Geralt and Yennefer do their stuff. Yennefer's stuff originally was actually really strong. Like, her first few episodes are really strong and is probably the best the season can do.
I think the actress carries it. I think she brought a lot to that character that probably wasn't there on the page.
Yeah, but then they just drag the whole season down with just Ciri popping up because she's important later.
And she's seemingly disconnected.
All 3 storylines are technically disconnected until one random episode and then the end. And that's kind of what screws the whole season over. Rings of Power had the exact same problem to work with. Rings of Power basically has to deal with about 1,000 years worth of time, but they decided to condense that down to 3 years, and I think that was probably a better way to do it, because when it first came out, everyone was confused about the 3 storylines. Watching it now, knowing that there are 3 separate storylines, it's really not complex. It's just the fact that the show cuts all exposition and acknowledgement of it.
Yes. This show has 8 episodes and decides to get through the short stories fast. Its goal is to have all 3 of these characters and wants the audience to be invested in all 3 of them, since all 3 of them are the driving point of the main saga, particularly Ciri. For those who are annoyed that, why isn't this just about Geralt? You haven't read the books. The books are, in my opinion, equally about Ciri and Geralt. I think Geralt has more page time. But Ciri is the story engine. Everybody wants Ciri. She's both politically, magically, she's important for many factions. And Geralt wants her because he's a loving dad, which is cute. I think they had a hard time, and I can absolutely understand that. Because you want to do these stories, and you want to introduce the world, but then you also want to set up the further down the line stuff. But my opinion is they probably would have been better served keeping it simple for at least the first 4 or 5 episodes.
Even cutting Ciri out would have improved it greatly, because basically we've got 3 storylines, right? We've got Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri. So the only person that gets any development at all is Yennefer.
Yep.
And even then, that's only in her first 3 episodes.
Yeah, because then she's pretty stagnant by the time.
She degrades somehow. Your wife would hate her because she suddenly becomes all about getting pregnant and wanting babies.
My wife gets annoyed because whenever I'm watching it, I always forget and I go, she's from Wolverhampton. I'm from Wolverhampton. She's like, you fucking tell me every time. I was like, oh, sorry.
We like Geralt by the end, but not because he goes through any sort of arc or anything. It's weirdly, he's stagnant the entire time. What's the first short story?
The first short story is the Striga story. That's the first thing he published in Fantastica.
And it's also the strongest episode.
So strong. So they would decide to go linearly, I think, and went, right, the first story is The Butcher of Blaviken, I believe. It's not that important which story came first. The reason why the Striga episode... And it makes sense why it was the first story he wrote. It's the fantasy trope. It's a knight comes into town to save the princess from the castle, only the princess is a weird aborted baby monster.
Yeah, she's both the dragon and the princess.
And the knight isn't even a knight. He's a monster hunter who seemingly doesn't have feelings and drinks weird potions. By the end of that story, you're interested to turn the page again.
Well, you also have the moral ambiguity. You have some adult themes.
I would argue they had an open goal and they decided to backflip into the kick. Yeah, they made it more difficult for themselves for no reason. Because we have 8 episodes, all of which are roughly an hour. 8 hours of time.
Well, you did for a minute there, but then you have to tell Yennefer's story. So then you have 4 hours of time. And then you got to tell Ciri's turn.
But let's say it's that. Okay, guys, we're going to do 8 hours. Could they then have said, well, if we've got 8 hours, how about if we did the first episode, it's just half an hour, and it's just the Striga story, and it's a really good, I want to watch the next one. This guy's cool. And then the next one, you do the Butcher of Blaviken. You go, there's more going on in the hood. He's thinking about morals, and is that meant to be Snow White?
You were talking about Geralt having an arc. What arc? Because in the show, Geralt literally is annoyed at humanity, and he's a monster hunter. By the end of the first season, he's annoyed at humanity and he's a monster hunter.
I said there was an attempt.
Well, that's the problem with it, because then we've also got Yennefer, and Yennefer has her great first 3 episodes where she actually evolves and everything, but then by her 3rd episode, she's completely reverted to doing nothing until the end of the season.
They did well considering all that is show invention. Like, there's no flashbacks of Yennefer's life. There's conversational hints.
Yeah.
But there's no whole flashback chapters.
Yeah. Well, let's go through it episode by episode just to get through it. So we start with The End's Beginning, and the whole episode is meant to be about the lesser evil. But the weird thing about this episode is it basically doesn't tell you anything. Like, they're kind of showing you some stuff, but barely anything. From what I know of the lesser evil, this is meant to be a weird retelling of Snow White, kinda. Because Renfri is meant to be Snow White, and I didn't piece that together till the very end of the episode. Because her 7 dwarves that are with her
aren't really dwarves.
Aren't dwarves. They're barely even short. I only realized because someone mentioned that there were 7 of them, and because we've watched the Sirens of the Deep one, I'm like, oh.
And Andre isn't trying to do direct like retellings, but what if the Witcher stumbled through?
It's a light framework. It's not as bad as what they did to Sirens of the Deep.
Like in the book, it's more of it is kind of like it's just a hidden little thing if you notice it.
We open with the Witcher doing some witchering.
It's a good opening.
It looks cool. He's fighting a CGI monster. There's only so much you can do.
But it has a distinct look with the background and foreground stuff.
Yeah, it's got a vibe. It looks like one of those shadow box dioramas kind of deal.
Almost like you've opened up a storybook.
Oh, it looks cool. But then he gets back to town, and then we just get exposition after exposition from a young girl that's just randomly there because we have no explanation of what this is.
It's a problem the show has the whole way through. They don't explain anything.
It feels like they either cut it for time, like it feels like it was there, and then they're like, pulling bits out of the script.
Despite the fact that Geralt, for a large part of this series, has a audience insert bard who could easily go, how does this work, Geralt? And the fact that Yennefer's at a school where she could be taught how things work, we remarkably don't learn how things work.
Yeah, the one thing we learn while Yennefer's at school is the law of equivalent exchange, but also that doesn't matter because Yennefer can just do stuff.
They go into more technical stuff because in the books they just do magic-y shit and don't worry about it.
Which is completely fine. I would rather that than, showing that you need something to sacrifice, but then never using it again.
Yeah. He gets word from the local mage, Striga, who only exists in this story in the entire Witcher book series. Just throwing that out there. It says, I want you to deal with this problem I've got, which is Renfri.
Yeah, Renfri wants to kill me. You need to kill her. She was born under an evil moon, which means she's an evil being of great power.
And it's just a superstition that he has.
Because we never see any of that from her. She seems relatively nice, but she does reveal that she wants to kill Stregobor. What they seemingly cut out is this whole thing that I didn't realize, even on rewatch. I think I had to Google it, because Stregobor is safe in his tower. Renfri wants to kill him, so he can't leave his tower. So to make him leave the tower, she's going to kill all the townsfolk, and then Geralt has to choose to kill her and her men, so that the townsfolk is saved.
He has to choose the lesser evil.
The show doesn't even mention the fact that she's going to kill the townsfolk. None of the townsfolk die, so all he does is randomly rock up to town. There's one line where he wakes up
the market.
After having sex with Renfri.
Which is part of the distraction, I think.
I don't know, because there's no chemistry there, but then he's obsessed with her for the rest of the show.
He has her medallion on his sword.
Yeah, and at the end of in the finale, when he's unconscious, he starts yelling out Renfri. And I'm like, you knew this woman for 5 minutes.
20 years ago.
Sure, God, yes. He wakes up after they bang and he says, the market, and then runs off. And I'm like, why is he doing this?
Yeah.
But yes, turns out she was going to kill all the townsfolk to force Striga out. All it is from our perspective is Geralt rocks up to this town and then just goes, fuck, and then kills 7 guys.
In a cool little sequence.
I don't think it holds up at all. I remember we were all hyped for it back in the day. I think we were just desperate. I think after Game of Thrones, we were desperate for anything. And I think that's one of the reasons this show was successful in Series 1. We all had pretty low expectations. We all loved The Witcher.
It was the peak of the fantasy boom in television.
Yeah. And for the most part, the show is not offensive until the finale for me. Overall, it's a very forgettable show, it feels.
Yeah. As a first episode of television, I feel like an audience walks away with more questions than answers. If you don't know what a Witcher is, I think you still walk away not exactly sure what a Witcher is. It's why the Striga episode is so strong. Because the episode follows the book fairly closely. Because the book opens with him walking into a tavern. Nobody wants the Witcher there.
How do they treat him in the books?
People don't like witches because they're
jerks, right?
Yeah, so imagine you're a poor person living in a hamlet, then your best friend's just been killed by a werewolf. This guy turns up on a horse and goes, I'll kill the werewolf if you give me some money.
So is me in every RPG I've ever played.
Yeah, so it's like you're already having the worst day ever, and now this guy wants your money for you to get rid of the problem.
Yeah.
So they're profiting on misery. And also, I guess there probably is a little bit of a bit scary.
Yeah, whereas in episode 1 here, they're treated in a raceway.
Not nearly as interesting.
No, it's the same scene as when the black elf from Rings of Power walks into the tavern. All the townsfolk are suddenly like, we don't like your kind here.
We don't serve their kind here.
The Witcher could kill everyone here pretty easily from what I gather. You can hate him and be like, whoa, freaky guy.
Well, that's it, because you think they're scary and stuff.
Yeah, you're not like, get out of here, I'm not serving you. You serve him, but you do it angrily. Like, there's ways to do this.
And it's a moniker that holds with Geralt now, that he's the Butcher of Blaviken.
Which also doesn't make sense, because he killed 7 dudes for seemingly no reason, but then we're told he did it to save the townspeople, maybe. So why are the townspeople then stoning him? In the show, it makes absolutely no sense. There's more context in the book. But in the show, it's legitimately just like everyone starts throwing rocks at him. It's a shocker of a first episode, honestly.
And that's ignoring this, who the fuck's this girl, why are we at court, where is this place in relation to Geralt, how does this relate to Geralt?
Targaryens are gone.
Not all of them.
Its name is Renfrey.
Not yet.
To this commendation, which will
Game of Thrones, what's the first thing it does? Everyone converges on Winterfell.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, everyone's at the Shire. Because those are stories that are trying to do these epic grand things. Everyone meets, the fellowship breaks up. But this isn't that. It's a very distinct, we're talking about this person and they're in a different place because it's sunny.
So they actually, they reference it. It looks vastly different. Whereas here, we are just suddenly dealing with Sintra. You don't really know where you are, why you're here. It's completely disconnected. Turns out it's also disconnected by time by about 30 years or something.
Well, at least 20 odd years, depending on how old Ciri's meant to be in this.
And depends how long she waited to get pregnant after getting married in episode 4. That's the thing, it's just all about, which is fine for an episode 1 when you're releasing the whole show at the same time.
I suppose that's also partly it, is the big streaming culture of you're going to watch 2 episodes tonight anyway. But then I think that leads to a lot of bad writing and bad habits. The writers aren't going, how do we make sure they don't switch in between breaks? like, how do we keep this interesting?
Yeah.
Which is a skill that is missing now in the streaming age, I think.
Oh, completely. And then episode 2 is actually where I feel like the show gets better, but not from Geralt or Ciri's end. They're completely batshit boring still.
Once again, weird one to follow up on for Geralt. I feel like there just is an itch that isn't scratched until he's fighting the Striga.
Yeah, and this is Yennefer's episode, which is a good thing because Yennefer actually has an arc in this episode. You feel for her immediately, whereas Geralt is cool. He's carried by Henry Cavill.
He's interesting, but you're not invested.
Yeah, I don't think he gives you anything that's beyond he's a cool guy.
I love the way you just sit in the corner and brood.
In order to save time, should we just say that we don't like the Ciri arc at all in this?
Oh, completely.
Whenever it came on, I was rolling my eyes, despite the fact that I've read the books and know it and really like Ciri in the books. I think she's really cool.
Well, she's nothing in the show. She accomplishes absolutely nothing.
She's going from place to place. place. They're forcing 2 of the short stories into one.
Her grandma jumps out the window at the end of the first episode. So Sintra has been invaded as far as we know.
By Nilfgaard, whoever they are.
Also not brought up, yeah.
Which is fine in the books when it's all from Geralt's perspective. And you're like, what? An invasion's happened? Because that's meant to be what it is. You're not with these high lords like in Game of Thrones. You're here with just the janitor of this world, basically.
Fuck Ciri for the most part. We'll bring her up every now and then. She walks through a forest for this episode.
She has to do something this episode.
Something happens to her every episode, but she never does anything.
Yeah, she's just being dragged by the nose until she finally gets to Geralt.
But Yennefer, this episode, actually does get a lot to do. She's a hunchback who has a shitty life. Turns out she has magic powers. And Harry Potter's off to magic school.
But it's not in a fun, charming way. She gets sold for 4 marks.
Yes.
She's with the pig, so she gets called Piglet. And the dad is just happy to get rid of her. The moment you see her when she's there holding the daisy, wanting to give it, even now thinking about it, because it's a good actress. It's a good. It's when it all comes together. The actress, the shot, the music. It's a perfect. Oh, poor thing.
She's a little bit ugly bettied.
You could tell this is a pretty young woman.
Yeah.
But that's just movies, you know.
Yes, they do their best, I guess. When they actually show the prosthetics of the hunchback, you believe it rather than just like there's a balloon in her back. So Yennefer only actually has 2 good episodes, in my opinion. Not only do you get Yennefer actually having her arc, and you care about a character for the first time in this show, but then you get Jaskier, who's also incredibly likable.
Yep.
Like, Joey Beatty does an incredible job and probably should have been our surrogate from the start. The normal guy coming into this world, like, that seems like it writes itself, especially because he needs to know more to be able to write his music.
Yeah, he's a traveling bard.
Who is, I guess, 10 years old, according to how old he is by the end of the show.
In the books, because, the books have a slightly different timeline, he's in his 30s when he meets Geralt, and by the main series, he's like in his 40s, but it's remarked that he looks a lot younger. And
I'm going to go with that he's 10 years old, and the grandma is also 10 years old.
I think I remember there being a quote, the showrunners, it didn't occur to them until someone pointed it out, just how old Jaskier meant to be, and they went, oh yeah, it's been 20 years, you're right, and he hasn't changed at all.
So their own jumbled timeline hurt themselves, because, again, grandma doesn't change.
Because with Geralt, ages slowly, Sorceress doesn't age at all. That's fine, but with Jaskier, he's just a normal guy.
Yeah, and they never thought of it.
Yeah.
But Jaskier is great. The story they're in is pretty stupid.
It's not the best.
It's a common theme of way too many of these episodes with Geralt. Oh, the humans are the real bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, the real monsters are mankind because they lied to Geralt. Striga lies to Geralt about Renfri because Striga created her. And like, oh, it's actually he's the bad guy, but he was asking Renfri, and Renfri's the one that dies. Whereas here, they're like, there's this monster stealing our cattle and crop or whatever, but basically it's just a dude. He's not even a centaur. He's a goat man, and he's actually just stealing this stuff for the elves that he is indebted to.
Who are on the edge of the world.
The elves have been kicked out of their hometown.
Well, it's meant to be that this was a world that was ran by elves until the conjunction of the spheres happened, where humans from our world literally travelled over, and then the elves were like, oh, they're just pests because we live for thousands of years, they'll die out. But little did they realise that we breed like rabbits, and we took over, and slowly but surely.
An incredibly cool idea that this show will not tell you about.
Michael Moorcock did it about 20 years before.
Oh,
just throwing that out. Just throwing that out.
Jaskier randomly talks about the conjunction every now and then.
Like it's a known thing that we all know.
Yeah,
Yes.
it feels like either you got to leave that completely alone, you don't have your characters talk about it without actually explaining it.
The nice thing I like about season 1 is you've got interesting characters who have performed well, who have been casted well.
Yeah, I have no qualms with the acting the whole time.
It's the best thing you can say about it with the core 4, if you will.
I think that's another reason why it was pretty well received, is because there's nothing outwardly horrible.
If season 2 was better or great, we probably would look at season 1 as like, it's a nice setting up the board season, because season 2 is a car crash. Season 1 now looks worse because it's like, well, look, all the problems were here. They weren't even explaining things properly.
Stay tuned for that video.
Yeah.
It's a theme with a lot of Geralt stories as well as the humans are the monsters. Geralt also doesn't really do anything. This one, he is tied up in a dirt mound the whole time, and he kind of just says the word fuck a lot, and he has a deep voice.
He's mean to Jaskier, which is a continuous thing now as a book fan.
He definitely shouldn't be, yeah.
He's always kind of dismissive of him and miserable.
Which makes him more unlikable, because Henry Cavill is doing so much work to, like, carry this character. But then when he's mean to Jaskier, a character we really like, we then no longer like Geralt.
I think Henry has said in season 2 and 3, he tried to bring in more of that philosophical, caring version of Geralt. But this is not even the Witcher 3 Geralt, because he's chatty and nice, and it's just they went with just gruff monster hunter looks cool and just held him at that.
Somewhat the Mandalorian, how he's an angry dad, but even Mandalorian loved, like from the get-go was like nice to the kid.
Yeah, I wish there was a bit more there.
Because that's the thing in the Mandalorian. You get cool guy the whole time, and then at the end, he saves a baby.
The Mandalorian's almost what this should have been.
Yeah, you save the cat at the end.
Episode 2's whole goal should have been like, let's make sure this like Donkey and Shrek dynamic, that the audience love it within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And they don't do enough of that. The winning formula is right there, and they aren't doing it. Instead, they've got him punching him or going, leave me alone. And sadly, the story they go on for episode 2 it's fairly boring.
Incredibly. So let's skip it. But the end of the episode, we get an absolute banger of a tune called Toss a Sub to Your Tuba, which is, please subscribe. It'd be cool. Memberships too.
Fuck.
Episode 3 is where I'm actually like, this episode's actually good, because we're doing the Striga episode. It's called Betray a Moon in the show. I don't know what it is in the book.
Oh, it's just called The Witcher, I'm pretty sure, because it was the first book.
Oh, that makes sense. This episode is basically the second half of Yennefer's arc. Yennefer's storyline opens up some weird stuff as well. So they always talk about the Brotherhood. So I'm like, is the Brotherhood
separate to the sorcerers?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question.
Are they? And then they just keep talking about that. He's down there constantly, but then he's also working for Striga because he's in this storyline, but we just saw him 2 episodes ago.
There's all these little hints, like when we see the incestuous king, like we see a younger version of him when the sorcerers are being picked.
Yes.
He's pinching his sister.
Which is like, it's the most blatant, hey, these are different timelines. And that's what I mean by like, once you know, it actually is super simple, but the way the show reveals it.
They want it to be clever, maybe.
Exactly. The show was trying to hide it for you because they think it's a clever reveal. And I think it did work for some people. When they like figured it out, they were like, oh my God. But realistically, it's just kind of annoying and ruining the pacing the whole time for me.
Yeah.
And I watched Dunkirk, the movie. I had read an interview with Christopher Nolan after I saw it, and he was talking about his timelines, because there are also 3 timelines in that movie.
It's the episode that finally delivers the promise of what I think someone who sat down wanted from The Witcher show. Oh, it's this Monster Hunter show, and Henry Cavill's the Monster Hunter. I think this is the episode that finally scratches that itch.
And it also explains what a Witcher is, because you have...
It's like it was the first fucking story.
You have the Kingdom of Foltest, whoever they are.
Don't worry about it.
You have this town, basically... They have a monster problem. Every night, it keeps coming down, killing people. So then they hire a witcher. So we get explained to us what a witcher is.
Yep.
We get to see a witcher go do some witchering, but then he dies. I think we should have seen more of how he actually gets got. But basically, we actually get introduced to witchering and the whole idea. But then we get to see a failed one. As a first episode, that would work really well because you're like, oh, is this my witcher? If you didn't know about Henry Cavill, sure. But you'd be like, is this my witcher? Then you die and you'd be like, oh, fuck.
But then you even see the process, like take money, and then it cuts to Henry going, I'll take the money after the job's done.
I take payment after the job is done, and for a third of the price.
And then you're like, oh, he's a better witcher. He's a good guy.
And this is part of the job.
Yeah.
I have to think at one point they were thinking this was the first episode because it works so much better.
Yeah.
Like Henry's life. I wish that was it. I wish you could have just cut everything out and just have it be the Striga story.
And they proved by showing half of Yennefer's story at the same time that this isn't an episode that needed to be only Geralt. Because Yennefer's not in episode 1. You could have this episode intercut because, again, because it's Geralt's story, it's pretty thin. There's not actually much to do here. He basically gets enlisted to go kill a monster, but then he finds out that the humans are the real monsters.
It's the interesting twist that it's like, oh, the monster is the princess, and the princess is a stillbirth abortion.
Who was cursed.
Yeah, so that she has the umbilical cord, like, great visual, horrifying.
The creature design is good.
And it does a good job at just going, here's what this show is. It's dark, it's got the fairy tales, but it's the fairy tales if like Guillermo del Toro went.
So it does go deeper than the humans are the real monsters because there's a second layer there because turns out Foltest fell in love with his sister, but also Foltest is also immortal because he doesn't age between now and when he comes to help. He's a great actor, and I really like him in this. The reasoning why he doesn't like come out and just say, oh, it's actually my daughter, is because a little bit of a controversy there. So it's like, it makes sense. There's another layer here. So this is immediately better than the first episode where they cut out all of the context.
We've shoehorned in Trish Merigold, who's not part of the original story. She's a weird factor, old Trish.
Is it because she's popular in the games?
Yeah. She appears first, I believe, in the Dragon Egg story as just one of the sorcerers that are with Yennefer. Not really speaking, not much of a role. Then the next we properly see of her is going to Kaer Morhen, and the witches know her and known her for ages. And there's implied that in the years between the stories, Geralt, because Geralt is who he is, has hooked up with Triss.
Yes.
And so, but it's all off-camera stuff. But because she's popular from the games, and maybe they were playing with the idea of doing a Team Triss, Team Yennefer thing, which as so far the show has not done at all, which is weird because they could have done that. It could have been a way to get people into it, I guess.
But we also don't need more characters. But she does nothing in this. She literally just enlists him. And like that's the extent of her abilities in this episode. She says, hey, Witcher.
Very boring. Just a mess. I can't help but think somebody in the right room went, wouldn't it be cool to have the Striga transformation around when Yennefer's turning into her pretty self?
Which I'll give them, does work really well.
But was it worth it? Like, I think they should have killed that darling and just went, look, it's not going to happen.
I guess so, because otherwise, I mean, even if this was episode 2, that would have helped, and you just had episode 1 be him and Jaskier.
Yeah.
So like some reconfiguring actually would have worked out, and you just honestly forget about Ciri.
I already have, yeah.
Oh, you also had some boobies in this episode as well.
And Henry shirtless.
Yeah, which you get in episode 1 as well. It feels a little bit forced. It's them trying to shoehorn in Game of Thrones. With the whole transformation thing, I guess it's meant to be a big choice, even though it's not at all, because the choice is, will you give up your uterus for magic powers and beauty? And she's like, yes, of course, I don't give a shit about kids. I've never given a shit about kids. This will come up next episode.
Almost immediately. Yeah, one of my least favourite sequences. The teleporting, running away from the scorpion monster. What the fuck?
But Yennefer makes that decision, and then she's like, cool. She goes and dances in a ballroom full of rich kings, because each king gets a mage, and that's what happens in this magic school. I don't know if the Brotherhood is the sorceresses, but the sorceresses want to have a mage skewing the kingdom. They're the Bene Gesserit. That's what they're doing, which is why they make out the Sintra is different, because they've never accepted a mage.
They wanted Yennefer to go to Nilfgaard because she wants to go to where she's from, Venderberg.
Who's Nilfgaard?
Nilfgaard, the Nazis.
I know.
Yeah. She wants to go to Venderberg, where she's from. And so she gets beautiful. So then the king wants her. So then Fringilla has to go to Nilfgaard, which bites everyone in the balls.
They don't really explain it very well, because we don't know where any of these places are, for one, which doesn't help at all.
It's always the problem with these shows, isn't it? Like how, because Game of Thrones has it easy where it's like north, south.
But they also show a map.
And they show the map every episode.
Sintra is indeed the jewel of the north.
We don't know where any of these places are. All we get for each one is a CGI drone shot.
Yeah.
But Yennefer doesn't want to go to the backwater Nilfgaard, because they suck apparently, and there's been all their kings are changing, so she doesn't want to be there. We don't really know why, but then she wants to go to her hometown because he's a nice, cool prince who is eloquent and lovely.
Who wouldn't want to be in charge of their own home country?
Yeah.
In the books, there's thankfully was answering it as I was thinking it, going, why aren't the witches and wizards just in charge then? Basically, they signed a concord saying that we never will try and do that, but hardy ha, we basically are, because it's easy to be in charge when you live for hundreds of years if you're just in the background.
It's the Bene Gesserit.
It's a show that it thinks, oh, you guys like political talk, right? It's like, yeah, but the reason why we like the political talk in Game of Thrones is, one, because it's rooted, like he wrote it with that, but it's usually political talk about characters we care about.
They remember Tywin's speech. You can do interesting stuff with it. But because she came from superhero media where she doesn't have to do anything like that.
You would have thought then that they would have been really happy with this. Oh, we can just do the short stories. Awesome. We'll just do fun adventures for 12 episodes.
That's not a thing.
So Yennefer is now in charge of her kingdom because the king liked her. And then we legitimately hard cut into the next episode.
Been years. She's over it.
It's been 30 years, she says. And then she just stopped caring.
She's even further back to when we meet Geralt in this timeline.
Yes.
I think they had to do an explanation for it on Netflix at one point.
Oh, really?
I think they had to do, in the world of The Witcher. I think that one of them is a fucking timeline map, I think.
Awful. So Yennefer is now bored with her entire scenario. So everything she worked for 2 whole episodes towards.
Never mind.
And it makes me insane.
You might as well just introduce her here.
Oh, 100%, because she's completely stagnant from here on out. If anything, she just gets more self-obsessed. The only time she changes is in her episode with Geralt.
Which is the first story she actually is introduced in the books.
I can see why, because that would be a great introduction to a mysterious, powerful mage that you want someone to fall in love with. But I also get why we had to have a backstory, and I really do enjoy her 2 episodes of backstory.
I do and I don't, to be honest.
Really? I think are actually quite strong episodes.
But this is a problem that we get. You feel like you're missing out on the good stuff this whole season. The episode where...
He died?
He's fine.
That's a really great, fun scene. The issue is, we haven't had much Geralt and Jaskier adventures for that to feel like we're in on the joke.
We've had one, because he wasn't around for the Striga.
So we've had one Jaskier adventure, and we've known Geralt now for 3 stories. So we haven't been around long enough for that to feel like a joke that we're in on with Jaskier. We're like, oh, Geralt's always fine. Like, it's fine. And so when he comes in and then you get the toss your coin, like, so now that song is popular.
Because we're years in the future.
Years later and he's wearing the same fucking outfit.
And he looks the same. Nothing has changed. Because we skip it, you can't have off-screen character development unless you're apparently Yennefer when she just went through a whole 30-year arc. But Geralt at least does stay stagnant, so we feel like we can jump on with him. We feel lost.
But that's a storytelling technique. If your character is largely quite stagnant, then make sure the world and people around them are changing and reacting.
And that we know why and how.
Paddington, he stays the same, those films,
Yes.
but he's changing the world. The world is reacting to him. So if Geralt walks into a town fairly stagnant, but then when he leaves, it's better or worse because of it, then that's interesting.
Yeah, Yennefer's super boring for this episode. The king she's working for is sick of his wife because she won't bear an heir.
A male heir. He thinks it'd be a great idea to...
Murder her.
Yeah, and with his sorceress there.
And murders a bunch of people around him. Even though Yennefer wouldn't care. She abandons a baby and then suddenly cares about said baby.
And that's what makes her want to be a mother.
While she's running away from this sorcerer and manticore thing, basically she gets dobbied through a portal, sword comes through, kills the baby. Maybe it's weird. And then suddenly from then on, she's like, oh, I do want children. Everything that has ever happened to me was worse.
It's god-awful. Not only is that sequence terrible because of just, why is this happening? It's like somebody went, we need some more action beats in this. But also it just makes an audience go, why don't you teleport all the time then? Because the show isn't making it clear that teleporting is hard or particularly monitored. Like, what's the distance on it? She teleports from a forest to a desert. Feels like a long way to me.
In episode 2, when she was learning magic, she has to kill a dandelion to lift a rock.
Yeah.
Whereas now she can basically do it on command. They did say she's special, and that's why she can do it on command. But people keep doing it throughout the season with no law of equivalent exchange until the final battle, when suddenly that's a thing again. But only if you do banned fire magic.
Fire burns through, or it's more of a spiritual angle to it. But then it doesn't work when you've introduced law of exchange stuff.
Yeah.
You're better off just keeping it Harry Pottery soft.
Exactly. Like, just don't explain it and we'd be happy.
Because it's not important to the story how magic works.
You have magic blood. Cool, I don't care.
Yeah. And not many problems so far in the book are solved because somebody could throw fire.
Yeah.
Or do magic, really.
And people don't really even do magic anyway.
No.
Geralt is the main story of this one. He gets pretty much the whole episode this time, which is kind of wacky considering this is episode 4.
If this was the better show, then this is the episode where we really start digging as to exactly what makes this guy tick. Because now he's in an unfamiliar environment. He's not hunting a monster. He's weirdly being... It's meant to be helping out his busy mate Jaskier, where now it's still like, oh, this dickhead's still here. Blanket statement, I don't like how Jaskier and Geralt really interact a lot in this show.
Yeah, he does at least save him by like saying he's a eunuch and stuff. So they're like, you can tell that characters have chemistry. They just aren't written well and never use it. And then also, they don't spend most of this episode together because he spends it with the queen.
I like the why you dress like a carpet salesman or whatever they say. Like there's 2 or 3 times.
A silk salesman, yeah. So there is some good lines. This is one of the strongest episodes. And I think I even wrote down in my notes that this is the episode where Geralt has more than one line. Like, Geralt actually has a conversation for the first time.
Well, he has a conversation with Striga, which I don't like in the first episode.
Oh, I don't mind that one. But that one is mainly them dancing around a point and like going, that's plot talk. Whereas this is actually like character talk.
Yeah.
And like whatever the fuck he did with Renfrey in episode 1 was literally nothing. So that doesn't count.
It's also the episode, I think, where people probably were getting confused. We're like, wait, didn't all these people die 3 episodes ago? That's probably the episode.
Yeah, this is the main problem here because she doesn't age. Grandmama looks identical.
Mousak looks exactly the same. Same outfit, same everything.
You might even think that maybe this is in the future because maybe that's grown-up Ciri, but then they don't call her Ciri, so you're like, okay, obviously not.
Didn't do themselves any favours.
It's a shambles.
It's kissing the frog and turning him into a handsome prince.
Yes.
But it's a hedgehog, you know.
I've heard that in the book, the knight is there the whole time and just refuses to remove his helmet, and there's a bit more of this whole, like, you wouldn't save my husband until he offered you something, which is why the short story is called A Matter of Price or something.
Yeah, because he asked for Law's surprise. She is promised to him.
That makes it morally grey. Everyone always calls this series morally grey, and like that sounds it, but this episode definitely isn't. And it really feels like it shoehorns in the law of surprise thing, because that's all just told to you via exposition.
And it's not. Law surprise in this.
Law of surprise has been called.
They all seem to believe in like this esoteric force of destiny, that the law of surprise almost is like tempting destiny. So because they believe in it, whatever you get, you are destined to have it.
Yes.
So because it's revealed she's pregnant, it's like, no, she's yours. Spiritually, lawfully, she's yours now because she was destined to be yours.
It also comes across as very shoehorny here because the 2 times we hear about law of surprise in this show is, oh, pregnancy, oh, pregnancy. So it's like they keep talking about how, oh, it could be a rake, it could be a puppy, but literally twice in a row, immediately after another in the same episode, it's, oh, law of surprise. Cool,
yeah.
Thanks. For this one, Ciri is in Brooklyn Forest, and Brooklyn Forest is the land of 1,000 suns, because no matter what camera angle is going, there is a big orange globe. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? They're trying to make it like ethereal, I guess, but it just looks stupid.
Yeah, and they're the dryads who are like, I think, sort of elfish, if I remember correctly.
Whatever it is, it's completely pointless. She does literally nothing in this episode. She just sucks up time and wastes my time, and I hate it so much. It literally grinds this moderately okay episode to a halt.
Yeah, I would happily invest in a fan edit. Like, you know how like Netflix had to re-edit their Arrested Development series because nobody liked it, so then they re-edited it and everyone liked it more. I think the problem is it all gets taken away by like none of these stories are as good as they could be because they're all sharing the limelight almost equally. It's like they're all split.
Even though Ciri has literally nothing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is that it'd be better for you guys to just do one good Ciri episode like he did one good Ciri story before it happens, because it doesn't take long for an audience to become interested or at least like or want to get to know more about the character. We say with Game of Thrones, that Tyrion scene, that 5 minutes with Jaime, this guy's interesting.
Yeah.
I look forward to learning more about him. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, especially because she doesn't change this whole journey. It's literally Princess learns that kingdom's scary, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, and the only thing that we learn is that she has got some magic to her. Because doesn't the Nan say to her in the first episode, you must find Geralt of Rivia?
Yes, that's our only link we have.
Yeah, Geralt's not looking for her until we get to his timeline where he is looking for her.
Yes, well, like way later in the episodes. Episode 5 is up next, which is where we finally get our first timeline convergence.
Well, I'm happy because there's no more Yennefer side stories. Well, for now.
So she ain't doing nothing. Episode 5, Bottled Appetites. We get a whole lot of boobies, this one. I think it's a better episode, even though it's a bit weird that we've again cut forward in time and Geralt now can't sleep for some reason.
And I can't fucking sleep!
Because of the whole destiny thing that's happened.
Maybe?
Yeah.
This whole episode is basically just hinges on the fact that Geralt can't sleep.
He's looking for a djinn that happens to be in the water.
What I've been told is that he wasn't originally looking for the djinn in the story. He accidentally finds it while fishing.
Yes.
So at least that makes some sense, because whereas in this, yeah, the whole thing hinges on him looking for a djinn in a lake because someone told him it was there, off screen maybe. It's been...
If they knew it was there, why didn't they get it themselves?
It's been some years.
It's also, once again, genie in the bottle fairy tale stuff. It's stuff that works well on the page in a short story published in a Polish-only magazine.
The strongest stuff you get is that, again, we get Joey Beatty back, so Jaskier and Geralt actually get to hang out.
Some good banter. Your voice is bad. You need bed. Can we have 40% more of this, please?
I guess the whole premise is basically Jaskier's in trouble because a djinn wish went bad, and now his throat is swelled up. So he needs to take him to the village mage. Oh, wow, it's Yennefer.
She's took over the whole village because she's left the...
They tell you she's taken over the whole village. In actual fact, she's taken over one mansion, which does get me to a whole problem with this show that I should have mentioned in the intro. We get no establishing shots of anything that isn't just a CGI drone, because basically every now and then you'll get some forest as a drone shot, and then we'll cut into this small section of forest. Here, we're told the whole village has been taken over. We see one building. Episode 1 is meant to be this whole town with a tower, and we literally literally see 4 wooden houses.
In Game of Thrones, he goes into like, every house has an awesome castle, and here's how that awesome castle looks. So for a show, that's awesome. For this, I think it's a Polish style, very stripped down, dialogue heavy books. And so he doesn't really go into details about how Sintra looks compared to this town or this city.
But that's where free reign of
that's
changing
what I'm
the
saying.
medium comes in.
Because then there's that moment when he meets Jaskier. Turns out those pubs they were in were like buildings built on mountings or something.
A terrible matte painting.
Weird stuff, but hey, you're doing something. You're throwing some visual at me.
But what we do is we get to see that from the distance next to his horse, and then we literally cut into just another bar. Yeah. Like, it's just another pub, and I'm like...
are they high up right now? Or are they down?
Yeah, where am I? What the fuck is happening? And then when they're like, oh, we need to go on the adventure, they cut away to them on the mountainside with it in the background. So it's like we're just on dirt roads again.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite B-movie trope. When you can't get access to nice locations and you can't build nice sets, you just have all your actors wander around the woods for free for most of your movie.
Where's the budget? Like,
well, this is something that we're asking all this, considering how expensive season 4 is supposedly. I'm going to be wondering where the budget is with that when we're watching it.
There's got to be 15 million or more an episode.
Yeah, which to me is a lot of money. Because Game of Thrones season 1 looks better than this, and that was cheaper than this.
100%. This is the episode where Geralt falls hopelessly in love with Yennefer, as far as I can tell.
And he makes a wish for her to love him.
Is that what happens?
Yes, so you're left not knowing whether or not Yennefer genuinely loves him or she's been wished to love him. That's
Why does he wish that?
Because he likes the look of her.
He doesn't do that in the show.
It's implied he might have done.
I don't think it is.
No, I'm pretty sure he directly says it later on in the season.
What did you wish for? Tell me. Geralt?
Geralt and Yennefer being a messy little situationship is one of my favourite bits of the book. Like, there's always something going on, there's always a miscommunication, and that's what makes it interesting to me.
Well, none of that's in the show.
Yeah.
Because in the show, we basically just cut to them having sex because she's trying to do djinn magic to make herself have a baby, because that's all she cares about now.
Topless blood ritual.
Yeah, probably only season 1, I assume, till she got famous.
Yeah, poor girl. Like, you know what I mean? I know, it's your first big role, you're 24, 25, and now you have to get your kit off in front of Henry Cavill.
Targaryen,
but yeah, happens. There you go. So it's meant to be a big thing, isn't it? Our 2 main characters are meeting each other, but it doesn't feel that grand or important. And once again, you're left going, this probably would have been more interesting if we were meeting her with Geralt, because now that we like Geralt, we can begin to like her because Geralt likes her.
Yeah, she would be mysterious wizard lady, and that would be something. Instead, because of last episode where she became stagnant and bored, she just does nothing. So I didn't like it. I don't think they don't have chemistry, because when they're talking, I'm fine with it. But the show literally decided, okay, they're going to have sex now. And then Joey Beatty's going to make a joke about it.
The show thought that bath scene did a lot of work they actually didn't do.
Yeah.
Like, they're meant to be somewhat similar, I think is what they wanted to go for, is that they're 2 people on a similar sort of, they're aimlessly wandering around. In this, it's Yennefer has full on left her magical post.
Yep.
Well, why isn't this super powerful Bene Gesserit trying to find her if she's left her post?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
This is the problem with mages, is that she can just go, I'm going to take over this small little town and no one will notice. The reason why I bring that up is that the show has you asking questions that it isn't even thinking about. That you're going, well, hang on a minute. How does it work? As you just said, you know, you introduced to magic as law of exchange, but now here she is manipulating people into being horny sex pests, and seemingly without any trade-off on her or the world around her.
Again, it's not a bad episode, mainly because we actually have somewhat sense of continuity because people are together now. So we understand where we are and what's going on a little bit better.
It ends with Geralt and her getting together. Next episode, which is the first short story of this collection.
It's called Rare Species in this one.
It's not like there are loads of adventures of Yennefer and Jaskier in these books. The next story is he's settled down in a town with Yen.
He's settled down?
They've lived in a town for years together. And turns out she has a little sorcerer boyfriend who she used to be with. Geralt realises that she's sort of rendezvousing with him and becomes fearful that she's getting bored of him and wants... And it's basically because of the miscommunication, they break up because Geralt doesn't trust her.
What if we skipped all that and then instead just started with Jaskier and Geralt in a bar for some reason?
This is where I would have liked some show invention of some Yennefer, Jaskier, Geralt adventures.
Yeah.
Because when she's there going, oh, you, the bard, it's like, you barely have met from my perspective, and then now you're acting like it's been years of like hatred of like wanting Geralt's attention, basically.
Yeah, it's like, oh, she's trouble.
Love to have seen this for at least one episode.
Literally anything, because the time jump absolutely nukes this. I think this episode's pretty infamous and people don't like it. Whereas I think this is, again, one of the slightly better episodes because it's Yennefer and Geralt have to go on a quest to save a dragon. We don't know most of the stuff that's going on. It's really poorly told, to be honest. But it's at least our three characters going to do something. Like, it's the Mandalorian. It feels more standard. And that standardness feels better. Where what actually happens is, this is another the humans are the real bad guys. So we have a quest to go kill a dragon.
And a lot of the dragons have been killed off.
This is all exposition, by the way.
There I go again, just delivering exposition.
And turns out this dragon is actually a good gold dragon, and he can turn into a human, and he's tricked Geralt to go on this quest because everyone else was going on this quest. They don't really do anything except walk the whole time. We're told several times how dangerous this journey is, but it's literally just the cast walking down a dirt road.
When you can't get access to nice locations and you can't build nice sets, you just have all your actors wander around the woods for free for most of your movie.
You know, there's a scary bit where they have to walk, shimmy along.
But that's a shortcut, and they only take that because they think they have to beat the Reavers.
I liked it for the dwarves. It's just a normal walking, where for larger folk, it's more of a shimmying along. The dwarves are actually dwarven actors. They're not some CG or whatever. They actually just got genuine people with dwarfism to be the characters.
They're not Tolkien tough dwarves. They're literally just short people. But again, there's a whole racism thing that we get into in one of Ciri's storylines, and dwarves will murder humans because they sick of being slaves, basically. It's almost will they, won't they. It's Geralt and Yennefer just kind of like eyeing each other off, and she's trying to make him jealous with her new boyfriend.
But don't you think, as someone who's binging this show, this is so disjointing? It's such whiplash. It's like, we just got together, didn't we? It's implied they've been together for a while, and they had some adventures with Jaskier, and they had a whole time.
Insane. Because, it's sapped of all the will they, won't they, because, it feels like they talked once and banged. Because that's what Geralt does in this show. He meets a girl, 5 minutes later bangs her, and then we never hear about her again. And in the end, the reveal is, again, the humans are the real monsters. This magical dragon is actually the good guy. We get an awful fight scene. Legitimately the worst mix-match cut thing I've ever seen.
And the dragon falling was funny.
The human falling into the smoke, that looked awful. But the fighting is absolutely abysmal, especially because the show has kind of been trying to do the one shot. Even though I don't think they hold up, you never see a single hit land because it's all close up on Geralt just doing this the whole time. And we know Geralt can fight.
Same in The Wedding. There's a lot of swingy.
Yes, because he's not trying to kill them in that. I accept that one a little bit more because he's smacking them around to just knock them out. But it's abysmal. And then we have our two-part finale, basically, which is called Before a Fall and much more.
So what's Geralt doing in this one? He has rocked up to Sintra and would like to see Ciri. And it's a reveal when it pans down and he's down there meditating, and we're meant to go, oh, the timelines are converging.
Yeah, that's in the last 5 minutes too. So then you're like, oh, what's happening next episode?
Yeah.
We're finally in line with everyone, basically. So Ciri is now suddenly the main character and gets way more screen time, despite still not doing anything.
This show does a terrible job with Ciri in season 1.
But we now have a ticking clock of Nilfgaard is marching on Sintra.
Whoever they are.
Even though we've also seen them invade. So, we've seen them win.
And then Junie is an Nilfgaardian, the hedgehog guy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That never comes up. So I was confused for ages, even again on rewatch, because they're talking about the white flame every now and then. You're not sure what is the white flame, if it's a person. You kind of think a lot of it that Kahir is the white flame because she's talking about him and he's seemingly in charge.
No. And Yennefer's doing a whole thing too. Should we teleport to Sodden? No, let's take boats.
So Geralt has finally decided out of nowhere.
Well, because he had the argument with Yennefer in the previous episode that he had a child surprise. He's like, I want a kid and you've already got a kid ready and waiting.
But that was years ago in their little TARDIS tent.
Yeah.
Or we have no...
But it's what he's been just internalizing for the past decade, that he has a kid that he kind of wants to see but doesn't.
You're telling me that that's why he can't sleep and this whole destiny looming over him.
The show is ridiculously bad at explaining anything to the audience.
It feels like it was there and they cut it out. That's how absent it is.
And the problem is the plots themselves aren't interesting.
No, I think it's unoffensive at best. But he finally goes to rescue Ciri.
He wants to take her away because he's legally allowed to, because the place is about to be invaded and he wants to take her.
Yeah.
So they have a fake Ciri.
It doesn't really matter because he finds out immediately that it's a fake Ciri.
Yeah, and we know it's a fake Ciri, so it's just boring. If that was the first time we were seeing Ciri, it might be interesting.
Yeah, but because like they have the turnaround reveal and we're instantly like, oh, that's not Ciri.
Yeah.
And then he walks outside and he's like, oh, that's not Ciri. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad we did this.
Because he sees the dice throw game. He's like, oh, that's her because they bowed to her.
But he gets captured, locked up under the thing, because why would we want our maybe main character, at least the reason people are here, to do anything in our show? That'd be crazy.
Escapes easily when the script needs him to.
Ciri is finding her way to where she needs to be again, just the end of her journey. And then Yennefer has the most to do, but it's not even Yennefer herself. Basically, everyone's worried about Nilfgaard invading. Suddenly, every kingdom is worried.
Because he's unified all those southern kingdoms he has unified.
And then she goes to talk to her old boyfriend, and then the Brotherhood/sorceresses get together and say, we can't let this happen. They basically say, we're all at war now. And it's just like, we've spent 7 episodes not being at war / we kind of already saw the war.
But also because we weren't building towards this.
No, we were jumping around technically.
When you build up in season 2 to the Battle of the Blackwater, where it's Stannis, and it's this. We've been building up to this.
It's a climax.
In this, the show gives you half of it. So then you're like, well, give me all of it then. In the books, they don't give you any of it and you're fine with it.
Yeah, Geralt just hears about it and he's worried.
Yeah, an evil empire is invaded.
Yeah,
okay.
Whereas in this, we're in the shoes of Yennefer, and all of the sorceresses basically have to fortify a castle because of an invasion coming.
And the problem now is where, and I don't like being that person too much, but they've shown magic to be very flippant now. They can open up portals and walk through them. So why are we taking boats there? We could just portal there, surely.
Even that, but like, why is Nilfgaard invading this one little... What is Sodden Hill?
It's not explained, but that's the only way in. It's one of those conversion points. It's the only way we can get into this northern part.
I got that from the wide shot that shows a bridge, but also none of the actual invasion happens in the castle.
Yeah.
This is what pissed me off. Yennefer has to protect Sodden Hill. So I actually got kind of keen because I'm like, oh, we're going to do a big battle. Like, I'm going to see where this budget went.
It's going to be Helm's Deep, is it, Dan?
One of my main problems with the show, like I said, was that we don't get any sense of space. So when I get to see this big castle, and then they're actually in the castle, like Yennefer is walking around, kind of, it's like a broken fort at this point, but they're walking around inside an area. And I'm like, holy shit, this is actually, we're doing something.
We are.
And then they spend all day fortifying everything. It reveals another problem of no one's clothes get dirty. Their faces are incredibly dirty. And like, they talk to this random civilian and his face is covered in dirt. And then he's like trimmed and proper. And like, this is stupid.
The whole show is very, what's the word, made? Like you can tell that these are costumes in a show and aren't lived in outfits that people are putting on every day.
Just rub them on the dirt. So I think I'm getting my big castle fight. And they've got all these fortifications because like when you have a fort, you fortify it and you defend it. And then the baddies come because they need to get through your castle to the bridge on the other side that leads to the north maybe or whatever.
We also get introduced to fucking Vilgefort, who you've already forgot about.
Yeah, who's incredibly important for later.
Yeah.
But then instead of defending the castle, where I'm like, okay, the money is going to a big castle. You're going to do Game of Thrones, one where the wildlings attack the castle. You're going to get that one big one shot. This is where all the money went. It's going to be incredible. You get some trebuchet shots, which I enjoyed because people have to kill themselves to do it. I'm like, love that. But then everyone just leaves the castle out the front door. And then every mage does one magical super move. They all press Q to do their super. And then their ultimate attack kills 20 guys maybe. And then they die.
If you aren't going to explain just how powerful these people are, and they're as powerful as you need them to be every moment, which is what this show is. They're as powerful as you need them to be, then it just becomes uninteresting because now the world doesn't feel real to me. Like, and you want me to be invested in it and you want me to think, oh, witches, magic, cool. But then if you're just going to have it be flippant the whole time.
Yeah.
And then have that flippant magic be important to this moment.
We're led to believe that Yennefer is like the most powerful or pretty crazy powerful. So for this important battle, she stands in a lookout tower and does telepathy and says like, oh, look out behind you. Even though we don't see her perspective even once. We literally only see her. I could have had a whole chat about this last episode, honestly. This one drove me crazy. But the whole show had been pretty inoffensive up until this last one, and it drove me insane. But then Triss goes out there, makes some mushrooms, kills 20 dudes. Another lady goes out there, kills 20 dudes. they make smoke everywhere so that it's cheaper, because then you can't tell that they're using the same forest over and over because there's fog everywhere.
Well, the same dudes.
With the same guys in helmets with their ball sacks.
The ball sack.
And then...
Did no one go... This looks like a ball sack.
Only after, which is insane. But everyone does like nothing. Triss then finally comes back to defend the fort, and for some reason stands 2 inches away from her half-wall chain link fence she makes, and then gets stabbed and burned through it. I'm like, how is any of this happening? It's just so unbelievably stupid. We get Vilgefortz, who turns out is a traitor, and honestly, I think you could finish this show and not realize he's a traitor.
He's introduced so late in the game.
And his magic power is Reaper teleporting knives, and then he loses to Kahir.
Do wizards and witches only get 1 or 2 tricks?
Yeah, because like everyone's shown, like Triss is doing druid stuff the whole time.
Yeah.
And fire magic is banned, by the way. Fire magic is illegal because Netflix hates fire magic because of the Winx Club show. But I think fire's expensive maybe, and that's why they don't do it. All this shenanigans is taking place. They're getting taken over the castle. Vilgefortz loses a one-on-one fight to Kahir, even though one of them is magic. The Witcher can do more magic as far as I've seen. So why try so hard when you're a traitor for one? But then he gets kicked down a hill, hits his head. And I'm like, cool, whatever. Like, I thought he was dead for a bit, but then he's not. What a shitty character.
Yeah.
But he's evil. Woo! He'll be important later, maybe, depending on how they care. And then Yennefer gets angry because you got to get angry at the last minute because it's the last final showdown. She dark phoenixes and then apparently kills the other 20,000 men. However many people they sent.
She did it.
Each wizard killed 20 and then she killed thousands. And also not in the castle. Not in the castle, at the front.
And this leaves Nilfgaard to have to retreat and lick their wounds for at least another year or 2 before they try again.
Yeah, even though we're not told that. It literally, I think it ends on her being triumphant because Geralt has spent the whole episode in a cart having flashbacks. I don't care what's in the book.
Balls.
That's boring as shit.
It's boring for your main character to be doing that.
That's stupid.
And then he just gets to Ciri.
Yeah, literally. He has never met Ciri before, which you said he had met her in an earlier thing in the book.
Has a whole story, yeah. The story before this story.
This isn't Destiny. Like, I don't know.
The fact they keep referring to chaos as magic, you've lost your chaos, where it's not really referred to like that. Chaos and law and chaos, it's discussion points.
Oh.
It's that like magic comes out of chaos and it's chaos but it's not like literally it's referred to as chaos.
It's a mana bar.
Yeah.
Because Vilgefortz loses his fight because he goes to grab his knife and he's out of mana, so he can't teleport his knife back, so then he gets kicked down a hill. Stupid.
It's so dumb. I think the best thing the show is its casting. I think it's even its building blocks upon rewatch and discussion aren't great. It's not a show that leaves you excited or feeling like you're in good hands for season 2.
Yeah. By the end of 8 episodes, you kind of feel like you're 1 or 2 in.
I feel like the story has now just began.
Yeah, you finally figure out what's going on and you kind of get it and you're like, oh, it's over now. It's a bad show.
I was going to say, it's a bad show. And it's only going to get worse, sadly.
Which is kind of funny that this like subpar, good enough kind of pilot season is the best it got.
That song's pretty fun, isn't it?
That song ruled.
It was wrong from the moment it started. I think the way they've approached these stories and this world, they have used it as basically just fantasy product. There seems to be already back here, a lack of understanding of exactly what makes this tick. Like, of what's under the hood, what are the goals of this story, what are the themes.
Why did people latch onto it?
Yeah, and I argue that they actually had a really good starting point with these short stories, and that was just a way to get everybody having a fun time, interested, like The Mandalorian did, which released alongside this, I believe, where those first 3 episodes are just The Mandalorian being cool.
And it has no B story.
And people look back on that first season so fondly because of its simplicity. And I think they could have done that here. You could have had the Bard, Geralt, and some Yennefer adventures, and then you could have set up the Ciri stuff and had that maybe go in.
I would go so far as to not set Ciri up as all, because Ciri is such a simplistic character of, oh, she is promised. She doesn't need to exist before Geralt meets her the first time. I'd have her as a side character in that forest, and he's like, oh, you're promised to me. And I'm like, he's like, no thanks.
In an ideal world where some of the episodes are 30 minutes, which allows other episodes to be 50 minutes, I think you could have picked the best of those 2 and ended with Ciri and Geralt meeting and then leading into them going off into this new part. The audience knows this story. I mean, it's very popular. It was very popular back then.
The Last of Us Mandalorian, yeah.
The show overthinks everything, and it tried to be more clever than what it needed to be, and I think it just it's an uninteresting show. It didn't even deliver on the promised fun of the premise.
What do you guys think of season 1? Are you rewatching? Do you even care about the new season coming out? I don't know.
I think that's the most interesting thing about season 4 of The Witcher, is who actually cares.